Welcome back to 8 Cubes. I'm KMBest, joined by frequent guest host Smiles, who you can find over on YouTube at SMLZ Snaps. Smiles is a frequent high rank climber, was rank 1 for a portion of last month, and is now, one would argue, maybe the premier buff deck player in the game. But we have a deviation from normal today. Normally, we start these episodes talking about the new card coming out. It's Red Wolf. He got bumped to the second slot because we have to talk about Thanos Fractured Frontier. Why do we have to talk about Thanos Fractured Frontier?
Because we see him in every game we play. This card is everywhere. Really cool card, which I think contributes to a lot of this, but this card is literally in every single game. And to a lot of people, it's getting pretty old pretty quickly.
I think that there is a duality happening here, because not only is Thanos Fractured Frontier, I would argue, one of the 4 strongest cards they've released this year, and the other 3 got nerfed. And I think anyone listening to this knows exactly what 3 cards I'm talking about. He's also just way cooler than any of them. And I think there's a bunch of ways we could try to negotiate the conversation around him. But I think there's 2 things that make him feel oppressive, and then 1 thing that he actually is doing that is oppressive. The 2 things that make him feel oppressive are, 1, you see him at the beginning of the game. So there's no ambiguity as to whether or not your opponent is playing a Thanos deck. Even though there are 5 or 6 different Thanos FF lists that are all doing mostly different things, you still sort of feel, oh God, it's happening again. I'm seeing this guy again. The second is, it is so much more fun to play him than it is to play any of the decks that try to beat him, because all of the decks that try to beat him are just paint by numbers combo decks. And they do a really good job, but they're not a particularly compelling play experience. So it almost feels like there's a gentleman's agreement of people just playing mid-range Thanos decks at each other forever. And then the thing he does that's actually kind of oppressive is that he is definitely the best 5-drop in the game. There is no question in my mind about that. He is the closest thing we've had to Sholau. I would say Sholau was a better card in the context of a Sholau deck, in the sense that it had cards like Maverick and Scarlet Spider to work with. But Thanos feels like a card that is exactly that powerful. It just doesn't have the things to double its impact.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the aforementioned big 3 of Sholau, Star-Lord, and Mother Ascani, all 3 of those cards were absolute merchants of copying. With Sholau, you look at Scarlet Spider and Maverick copying the buff. With a card like Sunlord, or with a card like Mother Ascani, you're looking at, for Sunlord, Zola, Absman, GM, and for Mother Ascani, it's basically just GM.
But she's also copying,
and she
right?
also copies the cards. So this is the first card where, like, the only way to copy this guy is Wong. And Wong, look, man, he's a 4-2. He kind of stinks. But the thing is that Thanos' interaction with Wong is so strong that it actually makes him playable, which is something crazy. But I think my main thing with Thanos is the fact that not a lot of people like to play combo decks is another thing that is, like, digging at him. Like, take, for example, original Sholau. Man Spider was, in my opinion, the single best counterpick to that deck. That deck had no tech for Man Spider whatsoever. Man Spider beat it like 100 games out of 100. But, like, nobody would play it because it's combo and it's more boring than, hey, I'm playing my Kitty Pryde. It's like 2023 Marvel Snap. I'm having so much fun doing this. It's just, like, this card is the absolute mid-range crusher. He's kind of, like, cemented himself already, just even in a single week, as kind of this king of mid-range piles, where if you're not on him, you should be on him, or you better have a really good strategy to beat him. But again, those combo decks, those decks that goes tall, really crush him. One card that I think Thanos has really taken out of the meta is Iska. Iska was kind of like the queen of mid-range in this previous meta, where all the best decks were running like an Iska variation. Like Aurora was running Iska, Batrock was running Iska. All these decks are running Iska, and because of Thanos' Soul Shot, it's kind of like you need to back up Iska with other power in a lane, and that makes Iska less likely to win the lane. So instead of getting a 424, you're only getting a 412, and it's like, why wouldn't I play something else with that 4-drop slot in that case? So I think that Thanos is interacting with Iska is what is part of him just, like, absolutely becoming the new king of mid-range. But I also think, like, this guy is not impossible to beat. It's a lot easier than a card like Sunlord to beat. In my opinion, Sunlord was very hard to beat because you had to use a tech card to beat him. You couldn't like combo over the top of him. This card lives very much within the show loud vein, just a little bit weaker because you can't copy him. You beat him with combo. That's how you do it. You just outpoint him. There's really no like, oh, I'm gonna tech against it. It's really hard to tech against Thanos. It's really easy to go over the top of him.
Yeah, the big thing about this card that sticks out to me is it is a card that pushes your curve low. And when your curve is pushed low to facilitate Thanos, what you want to do is play the low cards that get the most points, which means you want to play a bunch of scalers, right? So all these Thanos decks are just like a bunch of things that cost 3 and under and scale really high, and then Thanos, right? And that's every Thanos deck. That also means that if you want to beat those decks, you just do that harder, right? You want to be you want to play like Batroc when your opponent is playing a Wiccan Thanos, because they're playing a Quicksilver and a Domino, and you're playing a Batroc and a Sam Wilson. And so if you're both doing that, your cards have a higher point value, and you're both Thanosing, so you're going to win that heads up. The same goes for like King Atri, Shadowlands Daredevil. Like these point packages, the more efficient they are, the cheaper, the smaller they are, the better they are at winning the Thanos mirrors. But in order to do that, you don't get to run as much interaction because interaction needs to be precisely timed in Marvel Snap, and Thanos doesn't let you precisely time anything. So there's the gentleman's agreement of everyone just playing Thanos is a lot of what's keeping things the way they are. Because not enough people are like, I'll just play Nimrod, dude. Like, good luck. You don't win. Like, you just don't win. You played a bunch of small cards and I made 57 power in 2 lanes. Okay, good luck with that, right? Like, there's a bunch of ways that you can beat Thanos, but they're all these linear combo decks, and they're not as fun to play. And so you just play a Thanos deck that beats the other Thanos decks instead. And that's a fine enough thing to do, but I don't think it's... I think there's a lot of equity in being the deck that beats Thanos right now, because you're going to play against a lot of him.
Absolutely. I think that you really want to be the deck that's beating the most popular deck instead of the deck that's kind of like sometimes winning the mirror.
Red Wolf is the card coming out this upcoming Tuesday. We've had a absolute monstrosity neutron bomb group of cards come out last Tuesday. Red Wolf on reveal, it's a 2/1. It gains +1 power for every card in your hand on reveal. Quick draw. It'll also buff your hand by 1. So every card in your hand gains +1 power, or is empowered by 1, or however they want me to say it nowadays. This is a card that I consider interesting, but I ended up rating him quite low on my season preview/review. People have been getting on me about using season review when I talk about my card ratings, because it's actually a preview. Okay, fine. You got me. I just don't trust bounce decks. That's really where I'm at. I don't trust bounce decks, and that's what I want to play this guy in. And I don't know what else I'd be playing him in.
Well, I'm looking at this from like another perspective. I'm looking at this from like a V-Hand perspective. So the V-Hand Gambit deck, it's got plenty of interaction. It's running Shadow King. It's running Gambit Horseman of Death. That's a really, really good interaction pile and stuff like that. I actually think Gambit Horseman of Death particularly is quite underrated right now.
He's very good. It's a shame about the other 11 cards in his deck.
Correct. So when you look at a card like Red Wolf, that's like actually getting power, we'll say in a V-Hand deck, this guy can be like a 2/6 without the quick draw, and then he's like that makes him a 2/11 with the quick draw. That's some serious power as well. And the main thing that I like about this card is that he costs 2. Okay. So this makes it so that you can quick draw him effectively every turn except 1 and 6. So you got 4 draws, so you're 33% to trigger his quick draw in any given game. That is higher, but also the fact that he's 2 makes him so much easier to fit in a deck such as V-Hand with such a low curve. Like, I'm thinking that this deck is going to be like solid. I think Red Wolf will probably make the deck. But again, I have a lot of other problems with V-Hand that largely center around, can we actually just beat Thanos, or are we beating everything around Thanos? So I'm not quite sure like when this card is going to be good, but I certainly think the card is fine. If the card releases a bit weak, which it could in this Thanos meta, where, I mean, we're looking at, like, if you're not a Thanos deck, you should be playing combo. If that is kind of, like, really what's going on here, maybe I can see this guy eventually going to 2/2. And then 2/2, I think it's a very real card. But I think this card is solid, My worry is like the 2-1. The 2-1 is just like, ugh, this is not great. Like, I actually really like the text on this guy, and before I saw we were going into Thanos Mirrorland, I actually thought this guy was going to be pretty solid, but not right now. I mean, this is a really bad release window for this card. Kind of similar, definitely not in the same magnitude, but it kind of reminds me of like the release timing versus now for Scorpion Brand New Day, where like everybody was targeting Scorpion. It was the most targeted card in the game, and as soon as it stopped being that, it started being really good because the card says double and it's global, and there's a ton of really good things you can do with it. If you ink him on a Scorpion and Hazmat, you'll like win the game. I'm hopeful for this card's future, but not right now. This is a card you can absolutely skip, I think.
It's definitely a really bad Thanos card because every Thanos deck is 1s, 2s, and 3s that you play immediately. So you never have cards in hand for this guy to actually do anything that helps you. I am interested to see how different a 2-cost quick draw feels from a 3-cost. Because we've had 2 3-costs, and I do think that like one of the things that you really feel with them is like, man, these are not on a lot. Like, these are really not on a lot. And it is only adding 1 turn of being on, but I do think that is probably a relevant thing to add. I liked your Gambit call out because I do think when you look at how the decks are currently set up, right? The base Thanos deck that I think most people are playing is the Wiccan one, which I think most players at the top of Infinite agree kind of sucks, right? It will lose to the more efficient points packages like Batroc Thanos, like Shadowlands Daredevil Thanos, like Aurora Thanos. Any of them are going to beat the Wiccan one most of the time because that's kind of what Wiccan is and does, and we'll talk about that a little more later. But all of those are actually kind of weak to Gambit. All of those good ones are kind of getting pushed back against if Gambit can get back to playability. Now, it was a big problem what happened with Mother Ascani for that card's playability. And frankly, I don't think it's a card that I want to be playable. But if you want to beat Batroc, multiple Gambits is by far the most efficient way to do it. The issue is that kind of makes sense for us at High Infinite. I don't think it makes sense for anyone else, because if most of the people you see playing Thanos are still playing Quicksilver Domino, Gambit ain't doing anything there. And so I think that even if Red Wolf does manage to make it into V-Hand, the fact that it just naturally loses to like the worst Thanos deck makes me not particularly enthused about it.
Yeah, I think the main thing with Red Wolf that's like making me interested is the fact that like, okay, in some V-Hand hands, this can be like a 2/6. That goes actually pretty tall for V-Hand. But again, I agree that if Wiccan is the Thanos list that you're seeing most often, multiple Gambits are nowhere near as good versus that as they are against the deck like Gambit. Like Batroc Thanos, a deck like Aurora Thanos, where you're killing all like a 110 Hydra Bob and stuff like that. It's just at the end of the day, I think this is a real card. Like, I think it will have its stay where, hey, it goes in a V-Hand deck and V-Hand's tier 2, which he always is right now. But I don't necessarily think this is going to be like a meta-defining pickup. I think Psylocke's better. I think Jane is better. I think Thanos is leads better.
Yeah. I'll say this right now. I am continually surprised every time I look at this card that it's not a 2/2. You said you'd be really interested in a 2/2. I look at that and I like, to me, it's like 2/2 feels like the floor. Like, that's what it's supposed to be to me. And I every time I think about talking about this card, I have to remind myself that it's not a 2/2 because it just feels like it's supposed to be. Part of that is just like my brain working weird because it's like, okay, it's got 2 abilities, it's got 2 cost, it's got 1 power. But like part of it is like, I do think it kind of needs that second point. Next up, let's talk about Jane Foster Fractured Frontier. She judges the worthy and defines worthiness using extremely expedient terms. You're worthy if you're on her team, and you're not worthy if you're on the opposing team. Afflict -1 to your opponent's units of the 4 that get selected, and buff yours by +1. Quick draw, it happens again. I'm really into this card. Maybe I'm coping, maybe I'm just like shiny new thing, but to me, it feels like a very seriously powerful 3-cost.
I agree. I think it's within the 3 best cards of the cost, but when we start getting to number 2 and number 1 is where I start to be like, I'm not quite sure. For me, number 1 even though he technically doesn't cost 3, it's
Is
Fisk.
Wilson
It's a
Fisk?
3.
You're
It's a 3/9. It can't be Shadow King. It's just amazing. It's almost always on if you're playing the card. Number 2 for me is Kraglin still. It's a 3/9. You can play any turn. It goes tall in one lane, which is historically better than going wide. But Jane pretty consistently 3/8. Especially because of Thanos' release. I actually think Thanos has made this card a good bit better because it's incentivizing people to play early. If we were in a metagame where like the first card being played was on turn 2, and this card was like, oh, it's a 3/6, but if I draw it late, it's like a 3/12 with the quick draw, I think we'd start looking at this card as like, okay, this is pretty comparable to Debris instead of a card like Kraglin. But man, this card is good. Like, I find myself trying to put this card in like my 3-cost stat stick decks. I'm like, okay, I'm running 3/4s. I can't run Kraglin. Let's put Jane in and see how it does. I think it's got a lot less restrictive deck building than Kraglin, but a lot higher upside. So I actually would put those two on rather even footing. This is a card that I think is just good. It's just straight up good. It's a good stats card. It'll be around as long as 3/8 is good stats, I think. And I don't think it needs a nerf at all. I think the card seems fine, balanced. I think it's benefiting from the current tides of the metagame. But yeah, good card. Not much to say on my end.
I have enjoyed it in a couple of different spots, but what I enjoy the most about this card is the floor is enormous, right? With most cards, when you talk about what they do in ceilings, the natural reaction is, well, what are you giving up to get that? Because you could describe a lot of terrible cards in Marvel Snap if you only talk in terms of their ceilings that happen 10% of the time. Well, then you're not really talking about what the card actually is. With Jane, though, her floor is so high that you don't need to talk about the floor, and you actually can just talk about the ceilings. Like, oh, I didn't draw Aurora in my Aurora deck, but it's okay. I made 3 Wongs and put a Jane on them. And it's like, oh, right. Like, I can just do that kind of stuff. Like, she can do backup roles in so many stuff. Is she the best thing to play with Venus? God, no. But she's a great backup if you want to play her with Venus. That's awesome. Is she the best thing to play if you're trying to afflict your opponent's stuff? No, but she's a great backup at doing it some of the time, and she's a 3/8 that does that in addition to the being a 3/8 part. And that isn't even to get into her quick draw stuff, which obviously makes her a much, much stronger card. I'm just consistently impressed by her ability to find her way into my decks because I don't have to think about whether I want this card. There's just always going to be something that she works well with. Oh, I'm playing her with Thanos? Well, great. I'll double her. I'll make a copy of her. I'll reality stone her. Great, perfect, love it, right? Like there's just so many things that are good with this card that make me feel like it is going to be in decks on decks on decks going forward.
Yes, I do think I'm a little less high on the card than you. I think this card is really benefiting from Thanos, making everybody want to play a turn 1, making everybody want to play a turn 2, or even multiple cards on turn 2. I think this card is good. Like, I think it's strong, but I don't think it's like. I think Wilson Fisk is like notably better than this card, but I certainly think she's like good. I think she's about on the same level as Kraglin in my eyes.
Next up is Psylocke, a card who came out, was very hyped, fell off, and now I feel like is sort of making her presence known again. Because Psylocke, Fractured Frontier, is a card you build around her non-quick draw, which is to say you build around her ability to discount your 5s and 6s in hand. That's what you do. And that is a powerful thing to do, especially in a world where the Thanos deck is saying, I'm just playing low to the ground midrange. So a package I've started seeing crop up is Psylocke Fractured Frontier, Luna Snow, Sarah, and Blink. Just as a way to say, I'm getting 2 turns of Sarah, maybe 3 if I play a Magic, right? Like the Scorpion deck is playing that. I've seen Surfer decks playing that. That package does actually benefit pretty heavily from having another Luna Snow, effectively. Now, I do think she's mostly bad Luna Snow, but that is still a very valuable thing to be because a second Luna Snow is not something that package had access to. And so I think my basic take on her is if you are a deck that wants to play a turn 4 Sarah, you probably want Psylocke in your deck. And that is a very specific role to have. I've seen her in other stuff too. I think it's very cute to play both of the 3 quick draws in your Quicksilver Domino deck, so they're always on when you get them. Like, that's cute. I like it. It's not very amazing, but it is very cute. And mostly, though, I'm just really impressed with her ability to just get a Sarah out on 4. Just like, that's good. There's a lot of things I can do with that. Like, I have a lot more consistency. I have 2 3s that curve into either of the 2 5s, and they both give me a turn 4 Sarah. And it's just like, that's really good. I'm just into that conceptually. There are things that beat that. Sure. Nobody's playing any of those things because they're too busy mid-ranging each other to death thanks to Thanos.
Yeah, I mean, this card's best and worst thing is that it is worse Luna Snow. I mean, when you look at Luna Snow, it's like, this is probably, in my opinion, at least one of the at least 3 best 3-drops in the entire game.
I just want you to know that you said
yeah.
3 bet. You said you thought Jane Foster was 3rd, Kraglin was 2nd, and
that's
Wilson
first. That's
first.
That's for stats. I think Luna's a better card than Jane and Kraglin for what it's worth. What's it called? I think that being like, what, 10-15% worse Luna Snow is still a really good card.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of like the vein that Psylocke's landed in, where it's like, Luna's my first choice, but Psylocke, if I get the upside, it's like crazy. And if I don't get the upside, it's still like 85% Luna Snow. And that's way better than Electro. So it's like, this card is good. Like, absolutely no if, ands, or buts about that. But it is kind of like getting dwarfed by Luna Snow. And that's something that I think a lot of people might have not expected, where it's like, okay, it's a 3/4, it only affects my hand, and if I get the upside, I'm doing a bunch of stuff. But the problem is that the upside is way too inconsistent, because it costs 3. 1, you're not playing this card on 6, because the quick draw won't matter then. 2, on 5, you want to be kind of like playing Thanos, so you're not going to be playing her on 5. And on 4, you're really doing a 3+1 on 4 to just get a discount when Thanos is going to give you it already. So the really only turn to play this card is turn 3, which makes it a 1 in 12 that you're going to get her quick draw ability active. And that's just not good. So I'm really like evaluating it in the sense of like a 3/4 that reduces the cost of your 5s and 6s by 1. And that's still just baseline a good card. Part of me wonders, like, if quick draw wasn't the mechanic this season and they just removed the quick draw, release her at a 3/5, she'd probably be a much better card.
Agreed.
Like, already like competing with Luna Snow in some veins, I think, in that end. But I mean, we do have the quick draw. It is a nice high roll. It's a great like snap equity thing if you want to use it that way. But I mean, I was a little too high on this card, but I think it's landed like pretty strong somewhere in the vein of around 3.5 to 4 stars. I'd lean probably on the higher side because I'm a big fan of Rampant Energy Cheat in this game. But I mean, the card is good. It's just like worse Luna Snow, and I could go on for like 4 hours about how many like applications and stuff like Luna Snow has. Basically, she's a worse version of one of the 10 best cards in the game. Really good card.
All right, Buffman, sell me on Doc Ock Fractured Frontier.
All right, so after Mother Ascani is, well, for lack of a better word, dead in the water, Doc Ock has really helped Jubilee Surfer become a much more consistent card. So Jubilee Surfer, after being buffed to 4/3, became a much better card because, I mean, that's literally like 2 points of power getting added to it, if not more, if you're playing it with like Thanos and getting an extra draw to it. But its lacking problem was that it couldn't target anything. You can't target Stick. You can't target Submariner, which I think are the 2 best hits off of that card. Now with Doc Ock, you can, and the downside is bad. -1 draw is bad, but him adding a random card to your hand with +3 power, it's not like the best thing to be doing, but it's certainly like, sometimes I've been playing this card and I get a card and I'm like, oh, like that's really good. Like one time I was playing a Mojo World game and I got Lady Deathstruck and it's like, oh, my opponent's never going to see that coming.
Yeah, I got Red Guardian off of one. It turned off my Wong. It was just like, oh my god, where did that come from?
It's like, what? You did what? There's like, it's like a part of the card that like maybe it's worth like 0.2 points of power.
Yep.
Where it's like 1 in 20 games, you'll just get something that like instantly wins you the game on the spot. So I think like the card, it's more solid than you would have originally thought. Like, I think that the card is closer to like a 6 out of 10 than like a 2 out of 10. Like, I think it's closer to like a 2.5, 3. I'd say probably like a 3-star card in my eyes, just because of the interaction with Jubilee Surfer and the fact that I think Jubilee Surfer may be the direction that buff is leaning if we don't get any like major buff support in the next few months, which to be fair, we've already gotten a ton this year. I think that this card is interesting. And the other like good application is a lot of the cards that Buff wants to be playing early. That +3 power is just huge. We saw how amazing 1/3 Agony was. Getting +5 on a card, like I play Agony, I play Doc Ock, and then I have an 8 power Maverick. 7 power Maverick. That's just really good. And then I put that on Jubilee Surfer, and my next 2 draws get +10. So there's a lot of things with this card that are just like, oh, I just played this card, and I might be -1 draw, but what I'm doing is so stupid that I'd even sacrifice -2 draws for this.
Yeah,
Where it's like, wow, this is really strong. But the problem is that if you don't get those like absolute crazy lines, you're like, I don't want to play this because I want to draw my good card.
that's kind of the
That's
thing
the
that really
issue.
sticks out about the card to me, which is like it's an intensifier when your hand is good. Because in the buff deck, you care more about doing things in a specific order, right? You need to do A, B, C, put them in together in the right order. It's why it's not an amazing Thanos deck, because you top deck something on 3, but you're like, well, I need to play this Maverick instead, so I'm just not going to play the thing I top decked, right? And you end up with a deck that's pretty prescriptive. But when you are able to, without a major cost, execute your game plan with an effective +3 power on it, right? If you already have the Maverick and the Jubilee, right? You don't need your draws. It doesn't matter what the card on top of your deck is. If you have those cards, and this card makes them stronger, you're good to go. You're fine. And that is the thing that really sticks out about this card to me, is that he is in the right archetype to bin a draw. There are a lot of other archetypes that would not ever bin a draw in exchange for this power. They would not be interested in it. They need their cards. No chance. You would never play this in a Thanos deck. You would never play this in an Aurora deck. If the deck is named after one card, you're not playing it in it, probably. Except if you're named Jubilee Silver Surfer, because you care so deeply about getting your points at the right time. And so if they're in your hand and you can effectively add 3 points to them, you're going to do that every time. And it doesn't matter what the cards you draw are, because they're going to get a massive buff anyway.
I think a really good like way to think about this is Agony and Carter combo. Like, let's say you have the Hope Summaries into Agony Captain Carter, Maverick Prodigy, Brood GM. Agony, I think, plays for north of 20 points in that.
Yep.
That's a +2.
Yep.
That's playing because it's getting multiplied by all these different sources. It turns into like a +20. So like a +3 would be like a +30. And are you willing to sacrifice like 30 points for a single draw? Maybe not like 30 in most games. Absolutely. Okay, you could take 3 draws for 30 points. That's just a crazy amount. So I think that you're right. This is the only archetype where this card could like be good binning a draw. But I mean, it's still a little bit weak. I would have preferred if he released that like a 2/4, maybe like 2/10 bins a draw. That's just a good card. I think that this card, even though it's not really a 2/10, it's more like a 2/8.
Yeah.
But this card is better than you think. It is certainly worth getting. And if Jubilee Surfer turns out to be the direction that the buff deck will go in for future months, this is definitely going to be a card that I think is going to be a part of it.
Also, I mentioned this to you before the podcast, but I discovered why Doc Ock was in this season, and I fully believe this. This is the only explanation I will accept. Doc Ock is in this season because he is armed. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. We'll talk about Wiccan. There's a lot of Wiccan Thanos running around, and I see the appeal. You get Quicksilver, you get Domino. The problem with Wiccan Thanos is that you don't get any other good cards. You do all this cool stuff. Like, you play Wiccan on 4, you have a bunch of extra energy. You play Thanos, you get a bunch more extra energy. You duplicated that Wiccan off the reality shot. And then you use your 10 energy to play Crystal and Speed on the final turn of the game. And you're like, I don't know why I did any of this. Like, it is such a compelling first few turns. And then your final turn is just playing guys. And you're like, well, this wasn't worth it at all.
Great. Not great. I think Wiccan is suffering from, I have a 1-drop on 1, I have a 2-drop on 2 guaranteed, so now I can only build for 3s. We have so many good 2s in the game that can help the Wiccan players scale their energy like so much better. Like, why aren't we putting like IP, Valentina, get some other stuff, and a Gambit Horseman in there? It's like, wow, I can play my Valentina card on 6, I can play my Iron Patriot, I can play this Gambit on 6, and I can play Galactus. Like, wow, that's like really
Those are cards.
Yeah. I to be honest, I think Domino's holding the deck back. It is a 2/4, and I'm like 2/4 solid stats. But at the end of the day, it's like, if they're not doing anything with that 2/4, like it's not like, oh, I'm curving this onto a Wilson Fisk. I'm curving this out into an Iron Patriot. Oh, wait, Iron Patriot also costs 2, and if I play a 2-drop, I'm running no other 1-drop, so I miss my Wiccan curve. I just think that the deck is built wrong. There's like a select few 3s, like I wouldn't run Kraglin in Wiccan because it's just running too many 4+ cards. It's kind of like, why don't we just like cut Speed and Crystal and put in like some of the really good 2-drops? That's about all I have to say for the deck. I think it's built wrong.
I think that the problem Wiccan has is inherent to Wiccan, which is largely just that if you're doing this energy scaling, your payoffs are going to end up being very generic guys, right? And if your payoffs are a bunch of generic guys, you better be damn sure that they are outdoing the scalers like Batroc and Shadowlands Daredevil. And when you play a 2/4 and your opponent plays a 2/9 that gave them a bunch of 1/6s, it doesn't matter that you have more energy than them. They're using their energy more efficiently. And so you have this conversation of like raw output versus efficiency. Wiccan has plenty of raw output. It has absolutely no efficiency. It is the least efficient user of energy in the entire game. Every bit of that deck is inefficient. And I think that's the thing that sticks out to me. I did want to talk a little bit about beating the crap out of Thanos. Right now, to me, that looks like magic. And I realize, that's like a pretty risky thing to do. Thanos decks could adapt. But the problem is there's so much pressure on them from other Thanos decks that they're probably not supposed to adapt. You might just be able to say, like, look, dude, if 50% of the people I'm playing are playing Thanos, they just have to think about Thanos as much as I do, right? Their job, if they're going to play Thanos, is to think about beating other Thanos decks. Their job is not to think about beating your Magic deck. And so I've had a ton of success with Scorpion Brand New Day combo, which I think is, I guess the way I would think about Scorpion Brand New Day combo is it is functionally the Mr. Negative of the game, which is to say it is the combo deck that does the most. If you are playing a combo deck mirror and you are playing Zombie Galacti and they are on Scorpion Brand New Day, you're going to lose. They are going to have more points than you. If you're playing Nimrod and they're playing Scorpion Brand New Day, you're going to lose. They're going to have more points than you. I know you're going to be like, oh, no, it's going to be fine. It's not going to be fine, dog. I'm putting you to negative 32.
Yeah, but I think Scorpion Brand New Day is the best position because it doesn't really get beat by the Thanos counters. But I think Nimrod is kind of like the card that, look, I see the meta as like 3 different types of decks. There's combo, Thanos, and tech against Thanos decks.
Sure.
Decks that are running like Cosmo, stuff like that. The tech decks can beat the Nimrod decks, but Nimrod can beat the other 2. Scorpion Brand New Day can lose to like the super. It's kind of like weird with Scorpion Brand New Day, where it's like there's some combo decks that just beat it. Like if I go a Symbiote Spider-Man into a Panther into a Zola,
you can't beat Galactus, you can't beat Panther Zola, you can't. There's just like a bunch of weird stuff that you lose to. Yes,
like weird stuff. Yeah, I like Nimrod. I'm a fan of it. I think it's been the best combo deck since Tombstone release because I think that card, like letting it beat Cosmo, is crazy.
It is good,
but it's also got like an interesting thing going on here. I know your word interesting dynamic, but it's weird because like if you're playing against Thanos, you want to be playing like Shuri Nimrod, but if I'm playing against the Thanos counter deck, I want to be playing Symbiote Nimrod because then I can Tombstone that and your Cosmo doesn't do anything. It's really just like the deck has a lot of lines that it's more about identifying your opponent, and obviously it dies to Stardust. But I think that like there's something to be said for a deck like Nimrod. You've talked a lot about Scorpion Brand New Day. I mean, obviously that deck is really good. Nimrod is one that I'm like always looking at like, oh, this is just like genuinely good. Like every time I play Nimrod, I am like, okay, this is just really good.
It is.
And then I get bored because it's like, oh, it's Nimrod. It's just boring. So I think that deck is really strong, and I think people should take another look at it for Magic decks. As for stuff like Tribunal, I mean, Scorpion's popularity kind of like takes that deck away. But yeah, I think those are the 2 decks you should be looking at if you're combo. Nimrod, because you can go Panther Zola against the Scorpion stuff, and also do the Nimrod stuff against every mid-range deck ever. I think you should also be looking at Scorpion Brand New Day for all the reasons KM has mentioned in his past like 3 videos.
2 videos, come on, man. Golden Gauntlet coming up. If you had to choose a deck for Golden Gauntlet right now, what would you be choosing? Because I think that if I had to expect the field, my expectation would be I'm expecting a lot of Wiccan Thanos. That's what I think I'm going to see.
I'd also expect a lot of Super Giant, weirdly, just because it's the deck that's always done the best in Golden Gauntlet.
Sure.
And a lot of the Golden Gauntlet players are players that return from prior events. So it's like, okay,
Oh, I have.
they have seen Super Giant win the past 2 events. Maybe they'll play Super Giant this time because it's clearly very good in the format. The deck that, if I had to put money on it, the deck that I would pick to win is a Shadowlands Daredevil deck. I think that is a very interesting card. Whether it be like the Thanos Shadowlands Daredevil deck or whether it be my deck, the Stardust Legion one, I think that just that card is very underrated because of like the different like ways you can interact with the deck. Like I'm thinking back to Golden Gauntlet Worlds from last year. When Supergiant lost in that tournament, it was to Arishem, which is like the most I'm gonna do points, and if you don't have enough points, you just can't beat me deck ever. And Shadowlands Daredevil essentially gives your deck 2 modes. There's like the techie super giant mode where I'm playing my Iron Patriot, I'm playing my stat sticks, I'm playing my tech cards. And then there's the Shadowlands Daredevil mode where you're like, I'm just going to do a ton of points. I'm going to draw like 1, maybe 2 tech cards. I'll draw my Thanos, like, okay, I'll draw my Thanos every other game, something like that. But I'm going to do points really strongly. And the fact that there's a deck that can have kind of like 2 modes where it's this like tech deck on one end and it's this like points machine on the other, I think is so strong in a GG format where you know your opponent's deck going in, where you're like, oh, my opponent's on Hela. I'm just going to never play Shadowlands Daredevil until I draw Stardust, and I'm snapping on Stardust every game. Oh, my opponent's playing Thanos. Let me just draw my Shadowlands Daredevil, play a ton of points, and just beat them because their soul shot's only going to kill my rock that I got from Debris. I think that this is a very strong deck, and it's certainly one that I would look to as a top contender for winning the Golden Gauntlet.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. I have been KMBest. He has been SMLZ. Make sure you check him out. Links are going to be in the description. And yeah, he can take us out. Tell him where to find you, etc., etc.
You can find me at youtube.com/@SMLZsnaps. Smiles, but I'll just spell with the SMLZ because it has been historically mispronounced a lot of the time.
It's Smith.
Also, you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/SMLZTTV. I am streaming 2 to 3 times a week, just playing fun decks at this point that I enjoy. I played Dockog for a while last stream. Hopefully, maybe I'll try out some Red Wolf next week.
Don't undersell yourself. Yeah. What rank are you right now?
Well, right now I am ranked like top 30, but last season I was number 1.
Right? No, I just wanted to make sure that like people understood what was going on here. Like, oh, I'm playing fun decks. I'm only top 30. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I was number 2 last season.
All right.